on 28th October 2021 by my office, requesting him to effect the reimbursement in accordance with his undertaking by end of November 2021. As there was no response, a reminder was sent to Mr. Damri on 10th December 2021 with a renewed request to reimburse the amount by 15th of December 2021. Mr. Damri still failed to effect the reimbursement. A first meeting was convened on 29th December 2021 at the Prime Minister's office, during which Mr. Damri, who was accompanied by Mr. Fogu, agreed to effect the reimbursement, provided details of the different expenses were communicated to him by Kalwa Holding Limited. Mr. Damri still did not reimburse the amount in spite of the fact that Kalwa Holding Limited did subsequently provide to him all the details. A second meeting was convened by the Secretary to Cabinet and Head of Civil Service on 2nd of March 2022, during which Mr. Damri, who was again accompanied by Mr. Fogu, reiterated his agreement to effect the reimbursement within a week after agreeing with Kalwa Holding Limited and the State Bank of Mauritius Limited on the exact amount to be refunded. Mr. Damri still failed to effect the refund in spite of the fact that Kalwa Holding Limited had already submitted to him the details of the expenses incurred. Following consultation with the Attorney General's office, a letter was sent to Mr. Damri on 20th of May 2022, wherein he was again called upon to refund the amount, which now stands at $156,675 US dollars and 77 cents within a week, failing which the Prime Minister's office would envisage recovery through legal means and take such other actions as it may be advised. Mr. Speaker, sir, following my reply on 5th of July 2022, both Mr. Damri and Dr. Ramgoolam have alleged in the media that commissions are being claimed on the cost of the medical evacuation of the latter. Mr. Speaker, sir, let me provide to the House a breakdown of the expenses, which, as I said earlier, amounted to a total of $156,675.77 US dollars, as follows. Payment to SpiceJet, I am saying in US dollars. Payment for SpiceJet for the medical evacuation flight, $126,390.57. Air ticket for Mr. Daneshwar Damri, $2,600. Ground handling charges, $8,000. Flight planning and clearances, $2,000. Travel insurance for Dr. Navin Ramgoolam and Dr. Das, $179.70. General COVID-19 medical cover for Dr. Navin Ramgoolam, $3,726.44. Ground to air flight dispatch and PAX handling at SSR International Airport, $950. Kalwa Aero Limited administrative fee, $1,200. Kalwa Holding Limited service fee, $5,600. part payment and interest paid, 4,957.75. That is on the credit card in September 2021 by Kalwa Holding Limited. 240 days interest on overdraft facilitated by SBM, $823.81. State SBM bank transfer charges, local and international, $247.50. Mr. Speaker, sir, this is the only claim set to Mr. Damri, which they have so far failed to settle. There is no indication of any commission as alleged by them.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for being a caring government and helping the former Prime Minister in this difficult time. Can the Honorable Prime Minister state the reason why Air Mauritius could not airlift the former Prime Minister for his treatment in India?
Well, we have, in fact, undergone some certain, we discussed with Air Mauritius initially, before all this, in order, in fact, there was a flight that was leaving for Mumbai, and we, in fact, made arrangements for the flight to be preponed, and there was an urgent situation. Dr. Ramgulam had to be evacuated. So we discussed with the doctors. They told us that there were a number of arrangements that have to be made in flight, for example, for carrying oxygen and so on. But unfortunately, because of certain rules and regulations, it was not possible to do so. And that is where we, in fact, I personally talked to the High Commissioner of the Republic of India when in fact, I saw certain press articles, I must say, in fact, blaming the government, that it was government's fault that, you know, we could not charter a plane, when it was not so. In fact, it was left for the Labour Party. They themselves told us that they were doing the needful, but as I said, nothing has been done. And then I discussed the matter with the High Commissioner of India, whereby we made the arrangements, and therefore SpiceJet was chartered to be able to convey Dr. Ramgulam to India.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. In your reply, Honorable Prime Minister, you mentioned about the sum and amount that was had to be reimbursed. Can you state whether any member of the Labour Party has publicly taken the undertaking to reimburse the amount due to the airlifting of the former Prime Minister to India?
Well, in fact, some of the members of the Labour Party had made public statements saying, for example, Honorable Asir Vaden himself, on the 7th of September, it was reported, and I quote what he said, son transfert jusqu'au All Indian Institute of Medical Sciences coûtera, lui-même il le dit, 154 540 $, une note qui sera payée par le Parti travailliste. Et je cite exactement les paroles qu'il dit en créole, c'est clair qu'il nous signe undertaking, le Parti travailliste, qui nous peut payer, ça traitement qui Dr. Ramgulam peut le faire des hauts, à la fin du jour, c'est nous qui pouvons payer. And let me, well, I won't quote again. He has made several statements, Mr. Speaker. I'm not going to quote everything, but since today we saw the misbehavior of Honorable Shakil Mohammed, this is what another honorable member, Shakil Mohammed, said. Tout ce que le gouvernement à ce jour, si vous ne pas tromper, c'est à peu près 150 000 $. Ça, l'engagement-là a été pris. C'est à la demande du Parti travailliste. Nous finissons dire qu'ils ont envie rembourse tout cela. Parce qu'on finit dire où qui fait, parce qu'en ce moment, l'île Maurice nous peut passer par un moment très très difficile du point de vue économique, du point de vue santé, du point de vue sanitaire, social, et nous pas penser qu'il y a une bonne idée, même quand nous finissons prendre la décision, nous finissons approche le gouvernement, nous finissons dire le docteur Djoumaï, nous envie payer, et nous finissons dire là, ok, pas de problème, pas aucun problème. That, I'm quoting just one other statement from Honorable, but there are others.
I have a supplementary question. Yes, I have the mic. I have the mic. Good. I wanted to ask the Prime Minister whether he will submit the call log. You have a call log as a Prime Minister to show that it was an incoming call on that particular day, because I have it from Dr. Nabi Ramgoolam that I may ask you this question, to produce the call log to show that it is an incoming call from the lady you have mentioned, rather than outgoing call. Will you, therefore, agree to submit to this House a call log?
Well, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Order.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I hope the Honourable Leader of the Opposition does not want me to give an account of what has happened. I think it is shameful. You know why I decided to relate exactly what has happened? Because I must say it is really sad. You know, let's put politics aside. We put politics aside. It was a situation where Dr. Ramgoolam had to be evacuated urgently, you know, and I don't want to say the number of times when I spoke to his wife and what has been said. I won't disclose that, because already what I'm saying, she talked to me, is creating a lot of ha-ha there, a lot of stuff. But if I say what has been the tenor of our conversation, I think they will be even more ashamed of what they have been doing. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, sir, I maintain what I have said, and of course I'm not going to disclose the tenor of our conversation.
Mr. Speaker, since I have...
Wait a minute. The table has been advised that PQ B933 has been withdrawn. Time over. Question to other ministers. The table has been advised that PQ B986 will be replied by the Dr. Honorable Minister of Health and Wellness, and I call Honorable Wuchi.
B946.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I'm informed by the Road Development Authority that the Triolet-Fond-du-Sac Link Road B166 is a classified road of a length of 3.2 kilometers, starting at the roundabout on the Terre Rouge Triolet Grand B, A4 at Triolet, passing through the roundabout at the end of the Triolet bypass A16, and which ends on the Plaine des Papayes Road B11 at Fond-du-Sac. I believe the Honourable Member is referring to this part of the road as the Fond-du-Sac Branch Road. Mr. Speaker, sir, accordingly, with respect to part A of the question, I'm informed that no contract has been awarded for the upgrading of the Triolet-Fond-du-Sac Link Road B166. The question of a survey prior to award of a contract, which does not exist in fact, therefore does not arise. With regard to part B of the question, during its routine inspection and surveys, the RDA has observed that the B166 road is in good condition. Besides the volume of traffic, which comprises mainly local traffic between the two villages, that is Triolet and Fond-du-Sac, is relatively low. At this stage, therefore, there is no need for the resurfacing or widening of the road. However, in the context of the preparation of the National Road Strategic Network, the RDA will also conduct a detailed survey in that region. If the widening of the road will be required in the future, appropriate land acquisition procedures, if needed, and which is a lengthy exercise, would be looked into. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker, sir. If a survey would be conducted over there, you would surely encounter some trees which have narrowed the said road and at the same time obstruct the flow of vehicles. For the safety of every vehicle users, can the Honorable Minister liaise with his department and to the Forestry Department to remove these trees and widen the road, and whether his department will speed up the resurfacing over there? I have some pictures. We can show the dangers encountered over there.
Mr. Speaker, sir, on the 24th of August 2020, my honorable colleague Avinash Tilak and PPS Dr. Anjiv Ramdani held a meeting at the District Council of Pamplemousse, where in fact it was question of some damages that are occurring at some part of the road because of the activities of the stone crusher company that's there. And in fact, it was the Eastern Stone Crusher Limited, and the road was heavily damaged. And thanks to my colleague, Dr. Ramdani, PPS, needful was done for that stretch to be repaired, and we have placed in there a signage to that only 12-ton vehicle can circulate on that road to avoid any future damage. And as I already said in my reply, the survey conducted shows that the road is actually in good condition and doesn't require any widening. So, and it's mainly used between those two villages. If there is any request from any private company for their activities, may they put them through the competent authorities, and we will consider accordingly.
These photos will show the good roads over there. I will table these photos for the ease of the minister. And one only request that I have is to speed up the the resurfacing over there, because for the safety of the users, it is not good. And I only want to speed up the resurfacing over there. Thanks.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, sir, I'll go by the recommendation of my honorable colleague, the PPS, Dr. Ramdani, and the engineers of the RDA, who are professional, they are engineers. I go by their advice. They have requested, they have recommended that there is no resurfacing required at this stage. So I'll request my honorable colleague, PPS, to kindly look into and advise accordingly. Thank you.
Honorable Bella.
B/947, please. Mr. Speaker, sir, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, commonly known as the IPCC, was established in 1988, and it is the United Nations body for providing policymakers with regular scientific assessments on the current state of knowledge of the science of climate change, the social and economic impact of climate change, and potential response strategies and elements for inclusion in a possible future international convention on climate change. Created jointly by the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations Environment Programme, the IPCC provides parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change with scientific information that can be used to develop climate policies. The IPCC has 3 working groups. The IPCC Working Group 1 aims at assessing the physical scientific basis of the climate system and climate change. The IPCC Working Group 2 assesses the vulnerability of socioeconomic and natural systems to climate change, negative and positive consequences of climate change and options for adapting to it. And the IPCC Working Group 3 focuses on climate change mitigation, assessing methods for reducing greenhouse gas emissions and removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere. So far, there has been 6 assessment cycles of the IPCC, For each cycle, reports are produced for the 3 working groups over a period of 6 to 7 years. For the 6th assessment cycle, covering the period of 2014 to 2023, in addition to the 3 working group reports, 3 special reports have also been published as follows. In 2016, the Climate Change and Land Report and the Ocean and Cryosphere Report, and in 2018, the Changing Climate Global Warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius report. A synthesis report for the 6th cycle is under preparation and expected to be published by early next year. This report would comprise findings from the 3 working groups reports and the 3 special reports. According to the last report of the Working Group 1 on the physical science basis, many regions throughout the world are projected to experience an increase in the probability of compound events. In particular, concurrent heat waves and droughts are likely to become more frequent. The frequency and intensity of hot extremes will continue to increase, and those of cold extremes will continue to decrease at global and continental scales, and in nearly all inhabited regions with increasing global warming levels. This will be the case even if global warming is stabilized at 1.5 degrees centigrade. The said report further states that relative to present-day conditions, changes in the intensity of extremes would be at least double at 2 degrees centigrade and quadruple at 3 degrees centigrade of global warming, compared to changes of 1.5 degrees centigrade of global warming. The number of hot days and hot nights and the length, frequency, and/or intensity of warm spells or heat waves will increase over most land areas. The report does not, however, give specific details on heat waves for different regions, but it mentions that the surface of the Indian Ocean has warmed faster than the global average. The above observations are in line with those of the Mauritius Meteorological Services, which claim that the mean annual temperature has warmed by about 1.39 degrees centigrade in the last 70 years, that is from 1951 to 2020. And the average temperatures at all stations are rising at a rate of about 0.19 degrees centigrade per decade. Night temperatures have warmed faster than day temperatures, involving an increase of 1.47 degrees centigrade and 1.35 degrees centigrade, respectively. As per the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, the global annual average temperature anomaly for 2021 was 0.85 degrees centigrade. Based on guidance from the World Meteorological Organization, the Mauritius Meteorological Services adopted the definition of occurrence of warm spell over the Republic of Mauritius as follows. Warm spell is said to occur when on 5 consecutive days, the daily maximum temperature over an island exceeds the average maximum temperature by 2 degrees Celsius. This situation is considered as an extreme event. Analysis of the number of warm days and warm nights for the period of 1950 to 2020, with observations from the Aeronautical Meteorological Station located at the Sir Sisago Ranguram International Airport, indicates that the number of warm days and warm nights are on an increasing trend. A concept note for a national adaptation plan for the health sector under the Green Climate Fund Readiness Support has been finalized in 2021. The main outcomes of the National Adaptation Plan would include vulnerability and adaptation assessment to develop contextual and evidence-based adaptation strategies, transferring capacity among healthcare personnel to improve surveillance and early warning systems for climate-sensitive diseases. The project concept note is under consideration at the level of the Green Climate Fund. The rising trend in the frequency and intensity of heat waves is only one of the visible aspects of climate change. As a small island developing state, Mauritius is highly vulnerable to the adverse impacts of climate change, including an increase in flood and drought events, landslide, severe tropical cyclones, storm, and tidal surges, and sea level rise. Sea level rise has been observed to be accelerating in the last decade at an average rate of 5.6 millimeters per year, compared to the global value of 3.4 millimeters per year. In addition to our efforts to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, my ministry has also initiated a series of measures to adapt to the adverse impacts of climate change. The list of measures was provided in reply to PQ B1096 at the sitting of the National Assembly of the 16th of November, 2021.
Yes, thank you very much. The Minister has given an extensive reply. Can I ask the Minister whether there's proper coordination in respect of our national adaptation program and with, together with countries in the region, whether these issues are raised and have been discussed at the level of the Indian Ocean Rim, the Commission de l'Océan and the SADC, and where does Mauritius position itself in relation to the ongoing discussion?
Oui, Monsieur le Président, je dois dire que tout l'aspect du climate change et les effets du climate change font l'objet des discussions au niveau de la COI, aussi au niveau de la SADC et aussi au niveau des Six Islands. Et je dois dire que ce sont avant tout des sujets prioritaires et cela fait partie de notre obligation à nous, en tant que petit État insulaire, de venir de l'avant avec notre Nationally Determined Contribution qui a été soumis l'année dernière, au mois d'octobre de l'année dernière, où nous sommes venus de l'avant avec toute une série de mesures en ce qui concerne la mitigation et aussi des mesures d'adaptation.
Any supplementary? So at this stage, our suspend the sitting for 1.5 hours.